our second guest, Dr. Edelina Burciaga. Dr. Burciaga is currently a professor at the University of Colorado in Denver, and her research examines experiences of undocumented immigrants who came to the United States as children. Thank you for joining us. Please unmute your mic and take it away.
Okay, so I think I'm unmuted, yes. Well, hello everyone. I am Edelina Burciaga, and I'm an assistant professor in sociology at the University of Colorado, Denver. And I see that there has been a session already in this series about the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, and also that one of the moderators or facilitators for that particular topic was someone who was actually from Georgia, which is a state that I look at in my own research. So that's exciting. So some of this might be repetitive. I hope not. I hope it's insightful and some new information. But as Jen mentioned, I'll share a little bit about how I came to this research topic and my own kind of background, and then I'll launch into exactly sort of what my study what I'll be sharing with you today. So overall, my research agenda has been driven by one question, which is sort of what are the pathways through which students of color and first-generation students get to college? What are their pathways and trajectories to and through college? And I was exposed initially to the experiences of undocumented students actually when I was a new lawyer. So I was just out of law school working for a public interest law firm, and one of the attorneys that I was working with was working very closely with undocumented students in the state of Massachusetts to try to pass in-state tuition. And so it's my understanding that currently in Massachusetts, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival or DACA recipients are eligible for in-state tuition, and that there are sort of individual institutional policies in terms of supporting and bringing undocumented students to colleges in the state, but that there's still no state law that extends in-state residency tuition to this group of students. So there are approximately 11 million unauthorized immigrants currently living in the United States, and about 1/5 of these, or 2 million, are what we in sociology refer to as the undocumented 1.5 generation. And what this basically means is that they came to the United States as children, are under the age of 35, so they've lived here most of their lives, and yet still have no formal pathway to citizenship. More than half of these undocumented young adults are of Latino, or Latinx origin, with nearly 60% migrating from Mexico and the remainder coming from other countries in Central and South America. And so my research and my doctoral program and currently focuses primarily on this group of undocumented young adults. And part of what I look at is how undocumented young adults are transitioning to adulthood in what I call a shifting legal landscape. So their experiences are nested in a complex of laws that influence both their day-to-day lives and their futures. And so the last major comprehensive immigration reform granting a pathway to citizenship for unauthorized immigrants in the United States was in 1986. And this was sort of just right before many of the undocumented young people that I've gotten to know through my research were either coming to the United States, or frankly, when many of them were just born. So many of them migrated post the post IRCA, what we call the IRCA bill. And so there has been really no kind of pathway for them or their families to sort of regularize their legal status. And in the wake of this post-1986 era, we've seen immigration enforcement become increasingly harsh, right? So the actual construction of parts of a wall on the border, the increase in border patrol. So that's meant that many families that have come during this period have stayed, and they've built their lives here. And that's sort of how we've ended up in a situation where we have young people between the ages of 18 to 35 who have really spent most of their lives in the United States. And so undocumented activists were able to advocate for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, the DACA program, in 2012. And this came actually as a result of several years of mobilization on the part of undocumented young people. But this grants a temporary work permit and a stay of deportation. And as many of you might know, in September of this year, the current administration announced the end of that program in March 2018. So, in the absence of comprehensive immigration reform, Latino undocumented young adults and all undocumented young adults continue to navigate their futures in a climate of legal uncertainty. And my research looks at this exact question. And I specifically compare the experiences of undocumented young adults living in Los Angeles and Atlanta. So you can switch to the next slide. And I chose these two regions because they share some kind of key physical or spatial characteristics. So there's a central city surrounded by a pretty sprawling suburban area. Both regions, though, both cities are nested in states that have taken very different approaches to undocumented immigrants living in their states. So LA is considered a traditional immigrant gateway. Immigrants have been coming to the LA region for years, whereas Atlanta is a more newish kind of destination. And undocumented immigration really spiked in the wake of the Olympic Games. So more importantly, perhaps for my research though, is that California as a state over time has become more welcoming in terms of its policies toward undocumented immigrants, while Atlanta is considered a hostile locale. And Georgia really, as a state, is what's hostile. Atlanta itself as a city is more welcoming than the rest of the state. But since it's a city that's nested in this larger policy climate, undocumented immigrants in this particular city experience a lot of fear, threat of deportation, and it's very different in California. In terms of educational access, California has both in-state tuition and offers state financial aid to undocumented students. And in Georgia, there is currently a ban for undocumented students to attend the top 3 public colleges and universities in the state, which includes the University of Georgia and Georgia State. And perhaps more importantly for the educational trajectories for undocumented students in the state is the fact that they must pay out-of-state tuition at any public college or university. And so what this means is that to get a 2-year degree in a community college in the state of Georgia for an undocumented immigrant, for a resident, so someone with citizenship status, would cost around $7,000 for the 2 years. For an undocumented student, it would cost $21,000 for 2 years. So it's approximately 3 times as much to even kind of embark on the college trajectory by attending community college. In order to understand the experiences of undocumented young adults, both in California and in Georgia, I developed this concept of educational belonging because I had a fairly interesting finding emerge, which is that for the undocumented young people that I got to know in California, even though they were enrolled in college, they still expressed uncertainty about their futures. And more importantly, they expressed this idea that they weren't able to fully participate in their college experience. So I completed 70 interviews in total, 35 in the Atlanta, Georgia area and 35 in LA and Orange County in California. And of the 35 young people that I interviewed in the state of Georgia, only 4 were enrolled in college. of those that I interviewed in California, all of them were enrolled in college. This includes 2-year and 4-year colleges. And so I expected the undocumented young people in California to be more optimistic about their educational experiences, about their futures, just in part because they were able to participate in the college process. But as I noted, I actually found that there was more uncertainty, a similar sense of uncertainty about their futures in both states. And so to connect these experiences, I have been working on developing and still kind of working out this idea of what I call educational belonging. And what this means is that I'm thinking about participation in college in particular, um, thinking about sort of what does it mean to fully participate in the educational experience, and what does full participation in education mean for undocumented young adults? And what I really learned is that for undocumented young adults in California who are enrolled in college and by all kinds of sociological measures of success and participation are included, what that means really is the opportunity to participate in these sort of experiences that we all kind of want to have in college, right? So things like getting an internship, studying abroad, social experiences. And what I find is that their sort of lack of formal citizenship and the uncertainty surrounding their status prevents full participation. And in contrast, in Georgia, full participation looks like the opportunity to attend. But again, that lack of formal citizenship status prevents participation in the education system. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to just kind of share the story of 2 young people that I interviewed. And so in California, as I noted, all of the undocumented young adults that I interviewed were enrolled in college. And because many of them were the first in their families to attend college, they were very proud of this accomplishment, as they should be. They were also aware during their time in high school that California law was changing to include state financial aid. And this change in law really is what made college possible for many of these young people. And so they really felt they had a lot of energy. I think, as Jen noted, that she had a lot of energy, like in going to college and wanting to take full advantage of all of the opportunities that college life can have. And so this included things like living on campus, participating in internships, study abroad, and just general social experiences that make college memorable. But even with the opportunity to go to college, I found that undocumented youth felt disenfranchised on their college campuses. And many talked about wanting to study abroad, which is something that's like absolutely off the table now with the announcement of the end of DACA, or even being able to participate in internships that required US citizenship. So Maritza shared, my dream has always been able to represent the US in another nation. So she was interested in sort of entering the diplomatic field and becoming a diplomat. I've always really wanted to do that. The issue with that is I can't get internships to get any experience for that because I need to be a citizen. And I push her, even with DACA, you can't get these types of internships. She says, even with DACA, I can't. No, I have to be a citizen and I can't be a citizen. So whenever I do find an internship that is working for the government, it's always, I can't do it because I can't go, partly because I don't have the money for it, and also because I don't have the citizenship status for it. So in California, I learned that the pathway to college for undocumented youth has been improved by local state laws, but once in college, youth must navigate a system and array of experiences that have evolved with really citizens in mind. And so most of the undocumented youth that I interviewed have to negotiate the opportunities and constraints associated with their legal status, even in one of the most positive contexts in the nation. And so in contrast, most of the undocumented young people living in Georgia wanted to attend college and they couldn't. And I think as Jen's research notes, they're really driven and motivated in both California and Georgia by the experiences of their parents. And so Diana shared during our interview, she was not enrolled in college at the time of our interview, but had been one of the top students in her high school class. She says, I remember this one phrase that my mom always, always, always tells me. It's people can take anything from you but your education. That's something that's in here. And she pointed to her heart. No one can take it away from you. That's why it's so important. And I feel like it's true. It's always been really important to me. Me and my sister have always pushed ourselves in school, taking AP classes, taking the most rigorous classes we can. Even though we don't have papers, we still have the opportunity. And we took that opportunity to its fullest. And it's just the limitation of what I can do frustrates me. It's frustrating. That's how I feel. I feel frustrated. I know for a fact that my parents do too. They want us to go to school. They came here to give us a better life, to get a better education. And the fact that I can't get it frustrates me. I can't do anything about it. She says the fact that they're limiting me to not only my potential, my success, my education, my right as a human being to get that education frustrates me. And so to kind of conclude based on Maritza and Diana's experiences, I really expected the experiences of these young adults in these two very different policy climates to look much more different. And I was surprised to find that they're much more similar than we would expect. And so I think that this means that we sort of have to look beyond the sort of framework of participation to think about what does full participation mean to undocumented young adults, and what are the sort of symbolic consequences of educational exclusion, both in welcoming policy climates and exclusive policy climates. So thank you.